Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled Dog Owner Chains Their Dog Up in the Early Hours of the Morning where it barks at anything that moves. I found this on the Nextdoor app for my neighborhood. Someone had been chaining their dog up outside in the early hours of the morning and neighbors were becoming frustrated with its incessant barking. One user shared their father-in-law's solution to a similar dilemma, and I found his compliance to be malicious enough to share with you guys. My father-in-law had neighbors that let their dog out early in the morning, and he is retired, so not always up at that time. They would chain it in the front yard for 1 hour or more, and it would bark at every car that went by continuously. He talked to them about it and they got belligerent with him and started cussing at him, and their response about the dog was, "It's a dog." The property frontage is about 100 feet, so the houses were close. He solved the problem, since talking didn't work, by working on his boat motor at 7:05 within the city ordinance time. He cranked that up 3 days in a row for about 15 minutes each day. The dog miraculously stopped barking. The next story is titled Ex-Father-in-Law Threatens Me with Court. Fine, we can go to court. Out a year back, my ex-father-in-law took me to court for an incident that had happened 5 years previously. While still married, I got into a door dinger with his Jeep. At the time I offered to buy a new door and help install it. He is a self-proclaimed mechanic and had the know-how. The project fell to the wayside. The door was never purchased and never brought up again. That is, until his daughter and I had a falling out and we divorced 5 years later. So, I got served and taken to court for $2,000. A made-up number that he felt was adequate. During mediation, I offered him $1,500 and to never contact me again. At which he scoffed. So, I told the mediator I'd like to go before the judge. I informed the judge of the original deal and found a matching door from a scrap yard for $400. The judge took my side and granted my father-in-law $400. It was incredibly gratifying hearing him throw a fit in front of the judge to go ahead and file an appeal now, and have the judge tell him that wasn't his job. And walking out of the courtroom as he angrily yelled at me that he would be seeing me again. Still haven't heard back. The next story is titled 4-Year-Old Insists on Having 2 Pieces of Cake. Malicious compliance with a happy twist. My wife's birthday was a few days ago, so we had some cake left over. I took the cake out after dinner and cut it into 3 mostly equal pieces. I ain't perfect, but they were close. My 4-year-old daughter then starts crying that she wants 2 pieces and wants me and my wife to share a piece. We go back and forth as this isn't going to happen. I put the pieces on plates and she is still crying and insisting. We try explaining that the cake will melt if she doesn't eat it, etc. Finally I get sick of it and say, "You want 2 pieces, no problem." I take my spoon and cut her cake piece in half. She stops crying and says, "Thank you so much, Daddy. Now I have 2 pieces." My wife and I look at each other dumbfounded and burst out laughing. The next story is titled We Should Have Drawn Up the Contract More Carefully. In this, my wife and I were victims of malicious compliance on the part of our twin daughters, who were in 1st or 2nd grade at the time. Like many kids, they tended to hoard candy, so a couple of weeks before Halloween we told them that they had to reduce their candy stash so that it would fit into a single pumpkin. It was taking up a whole collection of spookily themed receptacles. We kept reminding them, but the candy stash never seemed to get any smaller. A couple of days before Halloween I was picking them up from their after-school art class when they walk out carrying an enormous paper-maché pumpkin. It was probably 2 or 3 feet in diameter. "Look, Dad," they said cheerily, "we made a new candy pumpkin." The next story is titled Email the Signed Form, It Can't Be Digital. My insurance company requires me to sign a form to cancel my insurance to stop it from auto-renewing. So, I digitally sign the form and send. They respond with, "We don't accept digital signatures. You'll need to print this out, sign and scan it, or at the very least, sign it and take a photo and email that signed photo." So, I print out the previously rejected digitally signed form, take a photo of it and send the photo. My insurance company, "Great, thank you, this is fine." The next story is titled Do You Want to Teach This Class? Okay. Back in middle school, we had a teacher, we'll call him Mr. Teacher, who was kind of a jerk. He was kind of an odd guy who came off as very condescending to students. He also seemed kind of disinterested in teaching in general. One day, during math class, he's generally butchering a lesson on the basics of algebra, literally the introduction to how an equation is formed and balanced. One kid is really struggling and asking a lot of questions. Mr. Teacher is struggling to come up with a coherent explanation. Finally, the class clown, we'll call him Kid, who was actually pretty smart, couldn't handle it anymore and interjects. Kid, Mr. Teacher, you're explaining this in a really confusing way, it's not as complicated as you're making it out to be. Mr. Teacher, look, do you want to teach this class? Kid, sure. I bet I can explain it better than you are right now. Mr. Teacher, I'd like to see that, go right ahead. Now, the tone of this wasn't friendly. Mr. Teacher was trying to put Kid in his place and he was really sarcastic about the whole thing. You could tell he thought Kid was going to bomb and be embarrassed. Well, Kid marches up to the whiteboard, grabs a marker, and spends 5 minutes walking the struggling Kid through the lesson in front of the entire class. His explanation is clear, it makes sense, and at the end the struggling Kid goes, "Oh, okay. Now I finally get it. Thanks." Mr. Teacher is pretty sour about this turn of events and picks up on a small detail, detail X, that Kid omitted from his explanation. He says, "Mr. Teacher, you know Kid, you didn't mention anything about detail X." Kid turns around and looks dead in Mr. Teacher's eyes and says, "Kid, Mr. Teacher, do you want to teach this class?" The class erupts in laughter and clapping and Mr. Teacher looks like he wants to kill Kid. Meanwhile, it was legit like a movie and the bell rings and class ended. The next story is titled, "Oh, you want me to keep my lawn constantly maintained, okay. It seems like my family have always been cursed with awful neighbors, from threatening to kill us, to spraying me as a little kid with a hose while I was in my backyard, to killing our pets if they ever escaped. We usually just avoided them, but one particular unit was really into maintaining his front lawn, to the point of writing us numerous semi-threatening letters if our lawn got higher than his. So my mum, in all her wisdom, complied. She would go over the whole lawn on our mower's second lowest setting, so it was bloody perfect. Then she went over it again in a random pattern on the lowest setting. It was a masterpiece. From up on the passing road, it looked totally normal, but from the front of our house, or his, you could just tell that something was off. I think the first few times he mowed over our lawn afterwards himself to fix it, but gave up on his pestering pretty quickly." The next story is titled, "Buy My Program When You Fire Me?" No. Okay. I was employed at a rather large factory which is one of the largest plant-based companies in the world, recently bought by an investment firm not so long ago. Anyways, I developed a program which was used at the factory. It could tell whenever any machines were not running, even if it was due to a manual stop or anything else. My program knew the reason why the machine was idling. This program made it so much easier for the entire factory. Workers were happy because they didn't need to do any manual work and write down every time the machine stopped. Led up to about a year ago. Factory appoints a new chief. All the old employees that were in a leader position was let go because it was time for new blood to come in. There was a lot of talk about selling off parts of the factory, including machines and so on. This included programs that I had developed, including the program that identified whenever a machine stopped. I developed this program on my spare time, showed it to the old management, and they liked it enough that they wanted to use it on every station in the factory. Every machine was to use this program. All that had to be done was for the program to be maintained weekly. This was around 5 years ago or so. When the newly appointed factory chief wanted to let the old employees, me included, leave, it was not known that I was the person behind that program. Anyways, at my meeting with HR and the factory chief, I said that I was willing to sell them the program and teach someone how to maintain the program. The factory chief laughed in my face and said it was company property and that it was simply their program and not mine. I offered to show them the source code and everything, but it led up to the point where if I was to tamper with the program before my departure, they would sue me. I was officially let go. 2-month countdown began and after 2 months I was free. After a week or so, they noticed problems with the program. It would stop loading, stop registering stops, and it would mislabel stops. I knew that this was when the fun was about to begin. After a month, I was called into the office and was told that I had tampered with the program because it had suddenly stopped working. I let them know that someone had to maintain it. I was ordered to teach someone how to do that job, and I told them, after you pay me for the program rights. They wouldn't budge, and I was told to return to work. When I had a week left, I strolled around the factory floor for a while and noticed that no stations were running my program anymore. I asked some operators why that was, and they told me that it just stopped working. Now we need to fill out forms every time the machine stops manually. I shrugged and told them to thank the factory chief. I left after that week, got a phone call about a month after I left where they begged me to sell them the rights and teach someone how to maintain it. I never sold them that program, instead I sold an improved version to another factory nearby, where I am now employed. The next story is titled, Customer Takes Manager's Advice. A few years ago, I worked at a sporting goods store that sells firearms. Some customers would buy online and have those items shipped to the store and then come in for the background check and pick them up. A customer comes up to the gun counter and says he has an order for pickup. I check the safe and find the guy's firearm and unbox for his inspection to ensure this is what he ordered and it is in good condition, as there are no returns on firearms once they are purchased. This order was for a very nice and expensive Browning Satori under 28 gauge shotgun. Of course I get to handle it and admire the beautiful craftsmanship of the inlay on the receiver, as these are rarely seen in the store, especially in 28 gauge. This is the conversation that followed as we're filling out the paperwork. Me, wow. This is truly an amazingly exquisite shotgun. Customer, yeah. It's also the most expensive one you guys have available online, at $2,500. But I didn't pay that. Me, really? Well, if you don't mind me asking, how much did you get it for? Customer, $1,250. Me, what? How did you manage that? Customer, well, I bought a cooler for $100 a few weeks ago and it wasn't big enough, so I tried to return it. However, your store's policy dictates that without a receipt it can only be refunded for the lowest sell price in the last 30 days, which at one point was on sale for $70. I wasn't going to take that, so I talked to your manager. After 30 minutes of arguing, he was unwilling to make an accommodation and advised me to call the 1-800 customer service number. So I did. I had to wait on hold for more than 2 hours to talk to a rep, and after explaining what happened I was offered a 50% off coupon on any one item online or in store. Now, I don't really need a new shotgun, but I found the most expensive one to use my coupon on just to stick it to your company for your manager's unwillingness to return the cooler for full price. Me, that is awesome. What did you do with the cooler? Customer, I returned it and happily accepted the $70. Oh, and if you see your manager, tell him I'd like to treat him to dinner, because calling the 800 number was the best advice he could have given me. The next story is titled, Give Us a Baby Photo. In high school, senior year, my graduating class was a wild ride. Our class song was an original from one of us, and our class flower was a cactus. We just went all out on the weird and original. Something a bit less original was the yearbook club, who was going to put together a before and after slideshow, pretty much a baby photo of everyone followed by their graduation photo. Well, I was a bit late submitting my picture and they found me and told me, send us a baby photo or we are going to Google Asian baby and the first thing that comes up is yours. Now that by itself is funny simply for the fact that I'm not Asian. Nobody in my school was even Asian. Small school, less than like 30 in my graduating class. Not I don't like pictures of myself, so I don't tend to keep any of them. My mum, however, has a ton of baby photos, as a mother would. I get a hold of her and before I even ask to see any I know which one I want. My mum is laughing so much about the picture I chose and is loving the idea of it being part of the slideshow. I told all MG friends and family who were going to the graduation, nobody else knew. To the yearbook's credit, they didn't say a thing about the picture. Day of graduation week, the class are all sitting on stage without diplomas and they bring down the projector for the audience. They also rolled out an old TV so we could watch as well, and the cooing begins. All of the families in the auditorium are oh-ohing and ah-ing at all the baby photos. Two guys behind me are trying to guess who everybody is before they come up, and to their credit getting most of them right. I know the pictures aren't in alphabetical order, so it's going to be a surprise when it comes up. Suddenly all the cooing stopped and there was a moment of silence before the audience went EEWH with confusion and discomfort. The boys behind me went, who the duck? Me and my friends are all laughing our hearts out. It changes to my graduation photo, the audience is murmuring, the boys behind me go, of course, angrily. I found out later that over both photos my mum wanted to hoot and holler but physically couldn't cause she was spending too much effort to not pee her pants from laughing so hard. Now the picture. I don't still have a copy of it but I can describe it. It was my first ever picture, still in the hospital. The background is dark and faded, I am beet red, screaming and there is just this skin and bones pale hand reaching over me like that of the Grim Reaper. I call it the Crypt Keeper hand, she was the nurse, that photo randomly among normal baby photo that were meant to be cute. Honestly my greatest high school achievement. I don't like pictures being taken of myself and I don't like seeing pictures of myself, and now everyone who bought a yearbook has to live with that demon picture. The next story is titled, The Sauna Better Be Hot or Else You Will End Up Swimming in Ice Hole. So this happened a few years ago when I was in the Finnish Defence Forces. Conscription in Finland is part of a general compulsion for national military service for all adult males. I'm a combat engineer for those who wanted to know. I love explosions, what can I say? Explosions make you feel badass. But this story does not include any explosions. Cast. Me, yours truly. Corporal, a laid-back guy who commands the squads which I'm part of. Second lieutenant, a man who has mastered roasting. He can make roasts that feel like third-degree burns in seconds, I still haven't healed from one of them. But also a really great guy who I respect a lot and who could throw some really good jokes too. Commands my platoon. Captain, 6 foot full of muscle and authority and also the captain of my company. Now to the story. It's winter and our company was camping on a 7 days fighting exercise. After one long 12-hour day my squad's corporal comes to me and says, "Corporal, I have a job for you." Me, yeah corporal, we were in good terms so the convo wasn't so formal as it should have been. Corporal, we need at least one man to heat a sauna for the higher-ups. Are you up for the task? Me, sure, why not? Corporal, the second lieutenant said that they will arrive at 2000, so if you want you can bathe in the sauna before they arrive. Me, yes. By the way, can I go to the naffy before I go heat up the sauna? Corporal, sure. I bought a few drinks and some chocolate from the naffy. Upon leaving I met my second lieutenant and some other higher-ups that were going in naffy. I saluted and held the door open for them. Second Lieutenant, Op. I heard that you will be responsible for heating up our sauna. Am I correct? Me, sir. Yes, sir. Second Lieutenant, good. The sauna better be hot or else you will have a swimming lesson this evening. Yesterday we made an ice hole in the lake nearby. Understood? Me, sir. Yes, sir. The malicious compliance. After chopping a big stack of firewood and bathing in the sauna I remembered my second lieutenant's words about the swimming lessons. At first I thought that it was all just talk and they wouldn't throw me in the lake. Then I thought, oh, wait. That would be exactly something that my second lieutenant would do, and I didn't really want to swim in water that was 4 degrees Celsius. 39.20 degrees Fahrenheit to my American friends. Normally, when a sauna is at 80 degrees Celsius (176.00 degrees Fahrenheit) and you throw water on the sauna stove, the heat feels smooth and gentle. When a sauna is at 100 degrees Celsius (212.00 degrees Fahrenheit) and you throw water on the sauna stove, the heat can sting but feels still good. This is normally the temperature where I like to bathe. But I didn't leave it there. I cranked up the temperature to 110 to 115 degrees Celsius (230 to 239 degrees Fahrenheit). When I went inside to check the thermometer, I left the room almost crouching. Then exactly at 2000 my second lieutenant and a few other higher-ups came. Among them I noticed the captain of my company. I almost crapped my pants and started to regret my decisions, but what is done is done. I saluted and informed them that the sauna is ready. Captain, at ease op. You may leave. Me, sir. Yes, sir. They entered the sauna and I left. I left fast. I ran faster than I had ever ran. I was the Flash disguised as an engineer. They knew and I knew who was responsible for heating up the sauna. I knew that I was screwed and I thought that I would be cleaning the toilets the whole next month. But nothing out of normal happened in a few last days. After the exercise, our platoon was called to auditorium where our second lieutenant told us how the exercise went. The company captain were there too, and when the second lieutenant had finished, he walked in front of us and called, "Captain, is Engineer Op here?" "Me, sir, I'm here." All eyes were fixated on me. "Captain, come here." I said my prayers silently and thought, this is how I die. The captain handed me a coupon to Naffy. The coupon can be exchanged for 1 free coffee and donut. I was baffled. "Captain, this is for you. You did a great job in the exercise." I thanked and went back to my seat. Later I learned that the second lieutenant had saved my ass and told the captain that I had followed his commands. The second lieutenant had also requested that I would be given the coupon. By the way, these coupons are a common way to reward privates. The moral of the story: do not play games with your higher UPS. The next story is titled "Go a Different Tank," although I say I'm bad at it, sure. So this story happens in the most toxic game, Overwatch. The community is overall toxic, you get some good people but god they are rare. So for some info for the non-gamers, in Overwatch you have 3 categories for heroes, like characters you play. You have tanks, DPs, healers. The one I was playing during my game was tank. For those who play, I was playing Roadhog. We were playing Capture the Point game mode, which is where you have to capture a point and get it to 100%, so does the other team. The first round we lost because one of the healers played a hero they have never played before. The second one I had gold DMG and silver kills. The second round I was able to clutch and capture the point. It was at this time one of my teammates started typing in chat that I am useless and have done nothing all games. He, or she, then said to change heroes. He said go Orisa, a hero who has a shield and a machine gun cross Star Wars gun type thing, but I said no, as I am doing fine on Roadhog. We won the second round, so it came down to the final round. The guy insisted that I go Orisa and was trying to talk smack to me. Normally I just block people like that, but this time I decided to comply as I had enough SR score to lose a game. So I picked the hero he insisted on. At the end of the game we have 0% on the point, but the other team has 89%. I managed to go from gold DMG to no medals for DMG and kills, and we haven't won a single fight. Just as the game ended, the toxic player typed to the match chat, "Reddit fanboy was throwing the entire game, report him and block him." After my team backed me up, he realized no one believed him. So he quickly left the game and most people endorsed me. Gotta get the endorsement levels lol. I managed to get to level 101 smiley face, and also got an endorsement level up. Jokes on him, I versed him the next game and he lost. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comment.